Yeah. So we are all set and ready to go. Yeah. Yeah. So before we start, I just want to say that the reason that we are making this video is just because a lot of people kept telling me, how did I learn the language, or what's the proper approach to learning a language? So before we go through anything related to languages, um, we are going to go through teaching yourself. How do you teach yourself any skill? Um, so we're gonna go through the three methods that we know, and we're gonna explain the difference between them, and we're gonna clarify the misconception about them. So we have studying and learning and acquiring. All right. So we will start with studying. When you study, you are 100% analyzing that thing. All right. You ain't doing anything like practicing or doing that physical thing or anything related to that thing. Just studying that subject. It's easy to be forgotten. You will forget everything. For example, like Danny, have you tried this? When you get out of the exam, you forget everything. Everything is going to be deleted.
Absolutely. There have been times where all I did was study, just read books about languages, and I couldn't tell you a single thing I learned from that book.
Yeah, like everything. Like if they tell me that I should do the exam second time, like man, I wouldn't do it because everything's gonna be forgotten. Yeah, so it requires time and effort. Obviously, like nobody likes studying, and because it's hard and it requires time. It builds a fixed idea about the subject, and this is something that I really hate about studying. Like when you study something, you know that thing through what you study. Like for example, if you study the gravity, it's something that related to the gravity. When you think about the gravity, you think about Newton laws, all right? So you think about the gravity itself through Newton. You don't think about the gravity itself. You feel me, Danny?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
excellent point. Studying will only take you so far. It's supplementary, but you need a lot more than just analyzing.
Yeah. So if you think about the gravity itself, maybe you will come with a new law, maybe better than Newton. So it's not dynamic. Studying anything extra on a studying is gonna screw up your studying, and eventually you will fail in your exam. And it's not fun at all. Like nobody likes studying. So when you should use this method, obviously with exams and interviews. Like for me, I've done a lot of interviews on the internet, and man, like I had to memorize everything, and I had to be in a perfect shape. And man, I don't when the interview ends, everything's gonna go back to normal. Yeah, so we're gonna go through learning. Learning is 70% analyzing and 30% practicing. And yeah, learning is just like doing a combination of studying and practicing that thing. But here's the thing: it gets forgotten with time. Like if you get skill through learning, you will forget it if you stop doing that skill. Like if you want to be a carpenter, when you learn to be a carpenter, if you stop being a carpenter for like a year, you are not the same when you first learn that thing. So after 5 years, you'll forget it. Like you are not a carpenter anymore. And this method is just like it requires time. Like with practicing and analyzing, you will analyze 50%. So you will go through studying 50% of your time. So it requires time and effort, and it builds a flexible idea about the subject. Like you can be innovative with anything that you have, and you are trying to learn, and it's not dynamic. So you are going through the same steps that other people took to approach that thing or that skill. So it's not dynamic, and it's not really fun because you are going to be studying 70% of your time. Yeah. So when you should use this method, anything that requires a physical involvement to be done, like anything that you have to be there to do, is going to be better to learn it instead of acquire it or study it. If you want to teach that subject, which is really important, if somebody wants to teach a language, he should learn it or study it maybe, because to teach something, you have to be involved in everything, in every aspect of that subject to teach it.
And Hussein, if I may,
Yeah.
uh, for instance, in the United States, all school children through kindergarten to eighth grade are required to take Spanish classes. I
Yeah.
took Spanish for 9 years and we learned, but I didn't acquire. It has been 5 years since I have taken a Spanish class, and I can't tell you anything in Spanish. It's a good place to start, but language skills are like muscles. If you don't use them, if you don't exercise them, they disappear over time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So we will go through acquiring. So acquiring is 100% practicing. So you are doing something you know absolutely nothing about. So you are just practicing that thing. It cannot be forgotten. You will not forget it because you just acquired it. Doesn't require time or effort. So you are doing that thing without knowing you are doing it. You are not feeling it. It builds no idea about the subject, which is the same thing. Like if you ask me, if I say like, it's how long has it been since you graduated? Like if you ask me why did you use that tense, I I would say I don't know because like I don't know the grammar. I just say it. And it's dynamic. You can add anything to acquiring. Anything extra is gonna be beneficial. No emotions. It involves absolutely no emotions because you are not feeling it. You don't know that you are doing that thing. So there is no emotions related to that thing. When should you use that this method with languages? Like we acquire languages. All right. When you are a baby, you acquire the language from your parents, from the environment around you, from other people who talks to you. All right. So it's acquiring is the best way to learn a language, like in my opinion, and that's how I learned this language because I obviously we went through the studying method and everything, but man, like after like Danny, we study English in a school for 12 years, and like all of the students they don't understand anything about this language, like they don't speak it, they don't understand it, and they can't read it. The pronunciation is really really bad, and man, everything about the language is really bad. Why we go to the same method, the first method, which is studying. They study it just for exams and just to pass the exam, and that's it.
That's exactly right. That's what
Yeah.
school does.
Yeah. So how can you do it? Like how can you acquire a language? It's through imitation. And I would say that do not imitate anyone except native speakers. All right, adapted books. And Danny, I gave them a lot of adapted books. These books are you know made by natives, and they were adapted to the levels of these people. Like you do like an exam or a test to specify your level in the language. Then then these books have levels. Like if you start with level one, it's going to be way easier than level two, from the grammar perspective or the vocabulary perspective. So these books are really really helpful. Like it can build a really really solid foundation for your grammar and for your vocabularies. And I explained to them like the real way to benefit from these books, because some people don't like reading that much, but man, like it's the best way to acquire the language and acquire more vocabularies that you can use in your language. And language exchanging programs, like the way that me and Danny met through language exchanging programs, like through a tandem. And it's really really cool way to help other peoples because we help each other. And like we just exchange our languages. I help Dan with his Arabic, and he helps me with my language, my English language. So which is a really good way to help other people. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, everything you said is spot on. My German teacher always told me the best way to learn a language is to read, write, speak, and listen. That's what you need. You start off with that speaking and listening, and you move to the literacy part, and you start reading and writing, just like we do when we're babies. Like you said, we don't
Yeah,
learn when we're children, we acquire the languages our parents teach us. And there's a big difference between that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Back to your point, like the other day you said that you're in a point where you don't need to study anymore the German language.
That's right. So
Yeah,
I started learning German in school, and so I learned and I practiced just like we had said above. But it's to the point where I don't need to learn and practice anymore because that doesn't do anything anymore. There's nothing that I can. The traditional way that the school is set up, there's nothing left that can help me. I need to acquire the language. So I watch German TV shows. I do language trades with some friends in Berlin. I practice on my own time. I go to the library and I find German books and I do my best to immerse myself in the language rather than study it and waste my time through all these useless efforts.
yeah, yeah, that's right. But for me, like to be honest, I studied the English language. Like I had books and everything, like the grammar and everything about the English language, like for almost a year, like 9 months, maybe 10. Then after these months, like doing all of these things and waking up at 5 a.m. just to study a grammar book, I understand nothing from the native speakers. Like I couldn't speak, I couldn't write, I couldn't read. I was like, man, I just wasted a whole my time just trying to learn something that I will never use because we don't use grammar. Like we don't like in our daily life. Like we don't use that perfect grammar, and we don't use the same terms that we use in the textbook. So like I was like, man, like look at the babies, how they learn the language. They learn it without doing any effort. So I was like, there is YouTube and there is movies and there is a lot of things with the internet that I can use. So I was like, man, just jump in and just learn and pick up any word, any grammar thing that I would find in my way. And just like that, I learned the language. And we will go through these steps, like how do you imitate the natives and how do you listen in the proper way and how do you read the book and how do you acquire the words that you can use from these books, which is a really good way. So yeah, I think this is the end of the presentation. Yeah, yeah, it was a really good presentation, Danny.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, bro, for the help.
Ah, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah.